Alright guys, welcome to another video. This is one of my first times ever filming a video like this, so I don't know how it's gonna go, but I hope you guys will learn something from it. I've uploaded a few videos of us sturgeon fishing from this year, and I've had tons and tons of questions. Majority of the questions or the comments that I get are just, what do you use? Can you show us your setup? Or something along those lines. Like, a lot of comments from you guys are asking like that. So I took it upon myself to try my best to explain how we do things, because keep in mind I am no expert at this. Like, I just kind of learned from my older cousins. Honestly, I'm a rookie at this sport. I will try my best to inform you guys with what I have obtained from observing and asking questions and getting answers from them. So first, we're gonna start off with the rod and reel. So I have a 12-foot extra heavy ugly stick. It is recommended to be used with 15 to 50 pound line. Other than the rod itself, we just added an extension part right here, so that if you guys see us fight sturgeons, and we use our whole bodies so that we have more torque to force the fish in, because these fish, they're strong, they're not weak fish, you know. They require a lot of strength out of you. So that's basically the rod, you know. It's simple, you can find your own. Okay, so the reel right here is a Daiwa Sealine X 50 HB. It's a 4.9 to 1 gear ratio, and it has 3 ball bearings. So this one does not have a guide. This is a freehand guide, so when you reel it, you have to guide it by yourself. The reason why we use it is because, you know, one, you could cast a lot further, and two, when you bird nest, it's not as bad as if you have a guide right here. So again, super simple. Daiwa Sealine for the reel, and an ugly stick rod for the rod. So the rod is also a 2-piece. I forgot to mention that. So there is right here. You guys can see the 2-piece part right here. It's a 2-piece rod. And then just for the heck of it, we tie this part to this part, because one of my uncles, when he first got into sturgeon fishing, he didn't tie this part like this. He cast it, and his first part went flying into the water, and when he was trying to reel it back, his rig got snagged in the rocks, and he lost the upper half to his rod. He couldn't get it replaced, because in order for you to get it replaced, you had to send in your old one, and obviously he lost it. So that's why we tie it, just for insurance when you're swinging that cast, because again, we're bank fishermen, so we don't have a boat and we don't just drop it out. We just stand on the bank and launch it out there. So the line, we usually use 40-pound monofilament or 50-pound monofilament. Right now I have 40-pound monofilament. 40 is the lowest I would recommend you to go. 50 is the highest I would recommend you to go. And depending on like the structure of the river you're fishing, like it varies. So let's say fishing a very rocky part of the river and your line gets frayed a lot, I would recommend upsizing your line to 50-pound. And if you're fishing just like sandy bottoms or places where your line's not going to get frayed as much, I recommend 40. Since it's smaller in diameter, you can spool more line. Perhaps you can let the fish go a longer distance without worrying about the fish spooling you. So yeah, 40-pound monofilament or 50-pound monofilament is what we typically use. Again, it's not really about the pound, it's more of how you fight the fish with the reel, how you set your drag and everything. There's a lot of things that come to play. It's not just the pound itself. Alright, so here's your main line, right? This is my 40-pound monofilament right here. It's just the main lines. So right here, what we tie the main line to is a swivel. I'm not sure what size it is, but the swivel is about 1 inch long, and it's literally the cheapest swivel you can find at the store. Like, we don't buy top of the line stuff. So the main line is tied to one end of the swivel right here. So the knot you tie right here to the swivel is basically the knot you feel the most comfortable with. I personally am a fan of the uni knot, so I have a uni knot tied onto there. Yeah, that's simple as that. And then on the same hole, you can see on the same hole as your main line's right here, you're gonna tie a leader for your weight. The line used to hold your weight should be less than your main line. When this thing gets snagged, you can literally break off this thing without losing the fish. Why? Because on the other hole right here on the swivel, you're gonna tie on your hook. You see it like that? So on the hook, we have a 130-pound braid on it, and we have a snell knot tied onto the hook. So we use a snell knot right on the hook, and then up here you just tie whatever knot you feel the most comfortable with, and then you're basically set to go. So the hook is by itself, and the main line and the weight share one eye of the swivel. So you kind of have a T. You guys see this? You have a T like this. The hook is on the bottom swivel, and then the main line and the weight line is on one eye of the swivel. The reason why we have it like this is because, so basically if you cast this way, your weight is going to be over here and your line is going to kind of be like this, right? And so what that does is it makes your hook kind of float up in the air so that it's not sunk into the bottom like this. So when the sturgeon come, it's not completely sunk into the bottom. So again, it's kind of like this, you know, your weight's down here and your hook's kind of hanging up here like this. So that's the purpose of it. And again, on the weight, if you're using 40-pound monofilament or 50-pound monofilament as your main line, I recommend using 25-pound monofilament for tying this thing, again, so that if you get snagged, if this thing gets snagged, you can break off this thing and still keep your hook and keep your main line. So that's the purpose of why we do things the way we do it. So you would lose your weight, but then you still have your main line right here and you still have your hook. And the hook is where the fish is going to be fighting from. I don't know, that's just kind of how we do it. Oh yeah, so how long do you want your leader line for your weight? So typically what I start out with is about a foot long. This is a little longer than a foot because I tried a foot long leader today and the fish weren't biting it. So I decided to increase it to kind of adjust the depth of my my bait and see where they were kind of sitting. So again, the leader of your weight line kind of depends on how the fish are positioned. So you might have to do trial and error with it. Some days they want it super shallow, some days they want it super deep. So it's just kind of, you know, trial and error. And so I forgot to talk, but the ounces that we usually use is a 6-ounce weight or 8-ounce weight, and it's just lead weight. I personally prefer 6 weight or 6-ounce weight, but I'm using an 8 right now because we're fishing in the part of the river that has a lot of current. So if you have a 6-ounce weight, a lot of times the current's just gonna push your weight all the way down there and it's gonna get stuck way down river. So you want a heavier weight so that the chances of it getting pushed way downstream are a lot lower. So depending on conditions of the water you're fishing, it varies. But again, no right or wrong way to fish. So it's up to you. So yeah, 6 or 8-ounce weight. The next thing is, what do you put on this 6/0 barbless hook? So we've heard a lot of people talk about different sorts of baits, and you know, a lot of people say they have success on this, other people say they have success on that, other people have their success on other things, and we have success on these things, you know. So again, as long as what you're using is legal and you're not breaking the law, your chances of catching sturgeon are pretty high, in my opinion. The key to sturgeon fishing is not necessarily what you're using. The most important thing, in my opinion, is how fresh the bait is. So you can literally have sturgeon bait #1 in the world and it's as rotten as it can be, and you can have the quote-unquote worst sturgeon fishing bait out there, but it's as fresh as it can be. In my opinion, that worst fishing bait is going to catch you more sturgeon than the rotten #1 bait. Again, there's no such thing as a #1 bait or a wrong bait or right bait or anything like that. It's just, are they biting your bait? So I'm just gonna name everything I know, or I've heard fishermen, or I've seen fishermen use that they have caught sturgeon: smelt, squid, crappie, trout, bluegill, perch, bass, crayfish, shrimp. Like there's tons of things. If you research sturgeon fishing lures, I'm sure there's a ton of things you can find. We personally use crappie because, I don't know, it's just easy to find. You know, you could go to almost any lake and you can find crappie. So I mean, again, it's easy to get. You know, it doesn't really take a lot of time. But sometimes I can say that crappie does take a while to find, and sometimes you don't have good crappies. But again, even though we use crappie, it doesn't mean that it's the right bait. It doesn't mean it's the wrong bait. It doesn't mean that you should be using what we're using. You use what you're comfortable with. You use what you have the most access to. You use what is the most easy to you. You use what you can keep the most fresh. Right now, dude, our crappies are just like, they're like falling apart. So the freshness of our crappie is already like downhill. So right now we're not even getting a single touch on rods. So again, we use crappie, and so you're probably asking like, well, what the heck do you do if you don't have any bait besides non-fresh bait? Well, that's when you use mesh netting. So basically you would put a piece of crappie right here or a piece of bluegill or whatever you're using and just wrap a mesh around it, and then you're just gonna tie it onto the hook so that it doesn't slide off, because it is barbless hooks, right? So again, you use whatever you use. So I will show you guys how I rigged my thing with the mesh netting. So basically from the end of the crappie, you want to cut about a size that is about 1/2 inch. So kind of like this, you just cut straight down it. Alright, so you have something like that. It should be like about 1/2 inch to 1/4 or 3/4 of an inch thick, and that's what you have, right? So you can leave the guts in there. To me, I don't really care. It's more natural. Alright, so in the process, you want to get a roll of 12-pound or 10-pound test, mono, it doesn't matter. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a roll of mesh like this. It doesn't matter what the color is, and it would be nice if I had a scissor, but I don't. So I'm just gonna cut it like this. I have a piece of cloth or mesh right here, right? So I'm just gonna place it down like this, open it up, not like that, open it up like that, put my piece of crappie in the middle, like that, and I'm just gonna roll it up. I'm just gonna roll it up like this, and so that ensures that my crappie won't be as much of a mess as I can. So it kind of looks like that, and you're probably like, what the heck, that didn't show the crappie anymore. It doesn't really matter, because a lot of the times the sturgeon are biting off a scent. So yeah, that looks perfect to me. So what you want to do now is you want to take your line and cut a little piece off, and basically you're just gonna tie it down. So I like to do a loop, I like to do a knot before, so kind of like that, slide it over, and I just pull it together, and I just double knot it or triple knot it. I usually like to triple knot it because it just ensures it. After you triple knotting it, you kind of have the mesh tied down. This is kind of what you're left with. And now what you want to do is you just want to cut off the excess line and put it right there, and that's what's going to go onto your hook. Perfect. And what you want to do is on this flat part of your hook right here, that's where the piece of crappie is going to go. So you just want to poke it right into the top right here, right into the top, and you just kind of go until you kind of poke it out the side. So see, you kind of have it like that. Alright, so this is what you have, right? You have just basically all I've done is I just slid the piece of crappie onto my hook. That's basically it. So now what we want to do is we're going to secure the piece of crappie onto the hook. How do you do that? Well, with more line. So what you want to do is you take another piece of line, and what you want to do is you're going to go through the eye of the hook. You're going to go through the eye of the hook with your line. You're going to go through the eye of the hook. Bam. You see that? You're through the eye of the hook. And now what you want to do is you just want to double knot. Tie a double knot right onto the eye of the hook. Tie a double knot. So now what you want to do, you take one tag end, slide this up, take one tag end, and just kind of wrap it around your crappie. So you kind of want to wrap it around the part where you already tied the mesh netting on. And then you hold this end, you take the other tag end, you go the other direction, wrap it around a couple times, and then you're just gonna basically take the two tag ends and you're gonna double knot them together or triple knot them or do whatever you want. Alright, so that's one. Let's tie another one. And basically, you have your tag ends right here. You're just gonna cut it off. Alright, and then how you want to make sure that's not going to fall off, you just kind of tug it down like this. You kind of see it's not moving, and that's your bait. That's good to go. Like, now you're just ready to cast. Do what I just told you guys throughout this entire video, and you're ready to fish. Alright, you take everything I told you in this video, and that's how we sturgeon fish. And basically all we got to do now is just launch it out there and we just wait. Alright, So fishing pole has been casted, and now it's just a matter of, are the fish gonna eat it? So now it just goes to any bait. It doesn't matter what you're using, it's just a matter of, are they gonna eat it now? Alright, so I have no idea if I did a good job explaining any of that, but if you still have a question, leave a comment. I'll try my best to answer it. Yeah, again, I'm not an expert at this. It's just kind of like a DIY thing. And again, you guys have to understand that there's no such thing as a right or wrong way to fish. I mean, if you're catching fish, that's what counts, you know.